40 years ago, this tornado leveled much of downtown Kalamazoo and surrounding areas. One of the few direct strikes an urban center has ever taken from a twister. Tonight on West Michigan's only 7 o'clock newscast, we're going back into the archives to revisit the devastation. Plus, Storm Team 8 examines our 4-decade drought since the last big one in our area. Thank you for joining us here on the 7 on 8. I'm Lindsay McComel.
And I'm Storm Team 8 meteorologist Ellen Baca. Tonight, we're taking a look back at one of the most significant weather events in West Michigan history.
The damage that spring afternoon was major. In just minutes, the F3 twister had cut a path through Kalamazoo. Tragically, 5 lives were lost. Another 79 people seriously hurt. That storm caused an estimated $50 million in damages. 31 buildings were demolished. 173 had moderate to severe damage. Ellen is going to walk us through the exact path the storm took that day.
You know, the thing about tornadoes is they really, as you mentioned, only take a few minutes to roll through an area, but the devastation that they cause can take weeks to clean up. This is incredible video. Thank you to Blake Naftel and Ted Brubel. Ted was the original photographer of that tornado. And the only reason why he had it was because he was testing out his camcorder equipment that day. It's a complete fluke as to why we have that video of the tornado getting ready to enter into Kalamazoo. This tornado was very strong. It came in as an F3. Now I'm going to show you the enhanced Fujita scale. So this is the Fujita scale, which we're used to, and then also accommodates and fluctuates just a bit for the types of material that a tornado is hitting. So the EF scale is the one that we use to this day. The Kalamazoo tornado happened before that took place, so it was an F3. Still, that is substantial in terms of a wind speed. And if we just look at the F scale or the EF scale and the type of damage it does, usually EF tornadoes that are closer to EF0 do light damage. When you start to get to an EF2 to EF3, you're talking major to severe. Kalamazoo is considered an EF3 tornado, a severe tornado, and an EF4 to EF5, that's when you start to get to devastation or incredible damage. So let's talk about the actual tornadic path, because this is a strong tornado, and not only was it strong, but it cut right through the heart of Kalamazoo, and that's one of the reasons why it's so memorable. In fact, this tornado was not the strongest to actually occur in Kalamazoo County, but because of the path, it did the most damage and produced the most in terms of fatalities. So let's walk you through the timeline here. This is May 13th, 1980, a day that was beautiful and sunny. It started off touching down right around 4 o'clock. Many of the kids were already out of school. Light damage begins. As it starts to move into the Kalamazoo city area, the path expands to 400 yards. The damage increases. Houses are starting to be flattened and cars are starting to be flipped. Maximum damage, of course, when it goes to the heart of the city. Gilmore's store, one whole side of the building was sheared off. 26 old oak trees were destroyed in Bronson Park. And the ISB building had windows shattered. Finally, the tornado dissipates at 4:25 p.m. and many were left scrambling and wondering what had just slammed into the town. News 8 reporter Jim Childress covered the tornado aftermath for weeks. He takes us with a look back now through the damage zone in a story that first aired in the days after the storm.
A killer tornado trampled 9 miles through the heart of Kalamazoo. It started on the western edge of town, a residential section of Kalamazoo Township, and it was on collision course with Kalamazoo's pride and joy, the downtown. That also happens to be the location of our Kalamazoo Bureau, so we were a part of the story we covered. The warning sirens downtown gave us just enough time to get into the basement. There are dozens of similar stories of near misses. At Claridge Fan, where 280 people work, it was shift change when the roof collapsed. 5 minutes either way, and there surely would have been serious injury. The twister came within a block of Bronson Hospital. Another disaster averted. The majority of the injury downtown occurred at Gilmore's department store. The back wall of the 6-story building collapsed. 2 died there, many more were hurt. Because the twister hit the city's hub of activity, there were many people who saw the whole thing unfold before their eyes.
I didn't know what to think. I'd never been in a storm like this before, and I just turned around and saw one of our office girls back here, and glass all over the place, in the air. I was just kind of standing there going, what in the world is happening here? It freaked me right out.
I saw it touch down because I saw debris starting to fly up in the air. And at that point, I immediately exited the top of the courthouse and proceeded down to the basement and helped get people down there.
You were on the roof of the building?
I was on the roof of the county building, but the tornado was some distance away, but it was close enough that I didn't stay up there any longer.
When the all clear sounded, an entire city had a look of disbelief etched on its face. Everybody in the stricken area was, to some degree, in shock. There were tears and hugs. I helped one lady huddled in a stairway, unable to speak. You spend all your life hearing about how these things happen in somebody else's hometown. But even with broken dreams and broken glass all around you, you are reluctant to accept it. The true scope of the disaster did not take shape for hours. For instance, being trapped downtown, I had no idea that 1,200 people on the other side of town were homeless at that moment. We all knew somebody had to be hurt. Most were surprised it wasn't worse.
And 40 years later, we wanted to relive that coverage with reporter Jim Childress. He told me what made the assignment such an extraordinary experience was being a victim of the disaster he was covering. For him, it was personal.
I think the thing that stands out the most is that the downtown took a direct hit. That's rare for tornadoes from what I was told at the time. And because it was such a densely populated area, it did just enormous damage.
Take me back to that day and just what you recall and in experiencing it and then reporting on it as well.
If it wasn't for the office manager who ran up and down the stairs and yelled at everybody to get in the basement, we would have been there when the windows blew out of our office and probably been hurt. We got into the basement, and the moment we got there, the lights went out, our ears popped, and the ceiling tiles just jumped up and down because of the change in pressure. So it was frightening. It was just so fast. I remember that. But then again, the adrenaline clicked in and said, okay, let's go. We got to cover the story.
How long did it take for you to really be able to stand back and kind of recognize the enormity of what happened?
It really did not hit me till the next day. Wednesday, May 14th, Dig Out Day. The human side of this story was now bare to the world. On the north side of West Main Street, you could drive down any side street for miles and see people picking up the pieces. It finally hit me when I had a chance to start driving through the neighborhoods and saw the impact on people's lives and the houses, the trees and the houses that were gone. And there was a moment when I just had a flood of emotion.
So you never made it to safety?
No.
What happened to your home?
It's demolished. And my furniture, all my possessions are ruined and it's gone.
Another time was when I realized that one of the people who had been killed was actually a college friend of mine, and I didn't realize it and had been talking about who was killed at the laundromat and then found out it was a personal friend. Journalistically, it was a huge challenge to just keep your emotions in check, stay focused, do the story, and stay out of harm's way, too. 47 homes destroyed, 216 damaged, 116 businesses were hit. Physical damage alone in the Kalamazoo area was given an official price tag of $49,495,000. It was shocking. You can hardly describe it. You having gone through it. It was, I never take a tornado warning casually anymore.
That day and the recovery shaped the lives of survivors. News 8's Kyle Mitchell spoke with two men who remember it as if it hit just yesterday.
The tornado came through downtown Kalamazoo, hitting the Comerica Bank building head on. A man who still has an office here has a vivid memory of that day.
The years have passed, but the memories of the tornado's destruction haven't faded for attorney Gordon Miller.
I was on the first floor when the tornado went over.
Miller was in the early years of practicing law and remembers seeing his workplace ripped apart in an instant.
They kept us inside the building to put scaffolding up out the front door and to put and then to put plywood over so that we wouldn't get hit by falling glass.
His legal documents thrown for miles, mixed in with debris, all the way to Comstock Township.
All papers and everything were completely blown out of the building.
Look at the stuff in the air. For those who saw the tornado coming,
4 p.m. and then how much rainfall we got, or at least I got.
like weather spotter Raymond Hackman, who was working on the city's north side and heard the news on the radio.
I ran upstairs to the second floor, and there I could see the top of the funnel and that jagged cloud.
Seeing the amount of devastation has forever changed him and the other survivors.
It was the most major tornado to hit in southwestern Michigan that I've ever heard of.
Hackman watched the tornado with two women for several minutes before taking shelter.
One of the girls finally said, "It's not moving." And I said, "Does it look like it's getting larger?" "Yeah." That meant it was coming right at us.
The tornado eventually veered downtown, missing his office.
Then it was filled up quite a bit of the sky, and I could see all these things flying around inside the funnel.
It looked like everything was knocked out.
Miller says he's grateful for the advancements in technology that have improved forecasting and have provided new ways to send out warnings. He wonders the difference that could have made in 1980.
But I think that the human toll would have been a lot less.
Reporting from Kalamazoo, Kyle Mitchell, News 8.
Coming up next, a look at the T-shirts, road to recovery, and your own memories from the storm. Plus, Ellen explains why we're overdue for another big one. Stay with us. Welcome back on this 40th anniversary of the deadly Kalamazoo tornado.
If you lived in Kalamazoo in 1980, one of your main memories is likely how the city came together following the storm. Do you remember these T-shirts? One proclaiming, "Let's rebuild," the other saying, "Yes, there still is a Kalamazoo."
The rebuild happened quickly, marked by these two issues of the Kalamazoo Gazette, the special edition of the paper on the day after the storm declared a disaster, and then 1 year later, the same house in the picture declaring a recovery. You can look through these newspapers on the Kalamazoo Valley Museum website. In promoting tonight's special, we heard from a lot of people sharing their own memories of that day, so we wanted to share some of them with you.
On Twitter, Reno says, "We'll always remember that the new Radisson downtown resulted from the old one being destroyed by the tornado."
Which I did not know that.
I didn't even realize.
Yeah. And then Chris Smith responded on Facebook saying, "I was getting out of school at West Main School across the street from where Tiffany's is now. At the time, there was a grocery store there. My dad picked up my brother and I from school. Had he not, we may have been walking home in it. My mom was on the 4th floor of the ISB building when it happened. I was 9 years old, and it seems like yesterday, and I am almost 50 today."
I mean, those memories just stick in your mind, and they were so lucky that a lot of kids were actually home from school already.
Truly.
With it hitting at 4 o'clock. And this is from Paul Kirkhoff. "I was at work here for the Grand Rapids Transit Authority and got a call from the National Guard that we were being deployed to Kalamazoo to help with search and cleanup. We were there for 2 weeks.
Which has also been remarkable to learn about is just how quickly people dropped everything to go and to help.
I love it.
You know, just from across the state, even Michigan State Police. I know in some of Jim's coverage, they didn't even know exactly what happened. They were just called and took off.
You know, every year we set the stage for another event or crisis, but every year it's beautiful seeing people come together whenever something happens. When we return, West Michigan is unfortunately overdue for a major tornado. I'll walk you through the science of it all. We're back in just 2 minutes.
Welcome back to the 7 on 8. For many, it does not feel like 4 decades have passed since West Michigan's last major tornado. Meteorologists say we're overdue for another one. Let's get to Ellen Baca in the tracking center. She's been going over the numbers for us.
You know, it's really incredible once you look at the numbers at how few of our tornadoes lately have been strong to violent. So I just want to talk about the difference between strong and violent storms and also just show you the trend, show you the numbers. Here are Michigan tornadoes in the last decade. Now, the first clear thing that you could see here is the fact that we haven't had as many as is average for the last several years. Well, this trend actually continues back even farther than that. And when we talk about tornadoes, we talk about frequency and then we also talk about intensity. Not only have we been seeing fewer tornadoes, we've also been seeing fewer that are strong to violent, aka EF3, EF4, or EF5. Almost all of the tornadoes that we've seen in the last 40 years in West Michigan and even Michigan have been between EF0 and EF2. We've been spared a lot of those really violent tornadoes, which means a lot of people that are 40 or younger and have lived in Michigan their entire lives have never experienced a tornado like the Kalamazoo tornado. So let's just look at how many tornadoes have occurred for West Michigan specifically through the decades and how many of them have been strong, again, EF3 to violent, up to EF5. If we look at how many have occurred each decade, we usually average close to about 30 to 40. Keep in mind in the 50s, a lot of times those smaller tornadoes were not reported very frequently. So that might account for why there's only 23 listed there for West Michigan. Now let's plot on top of that, how many tornadoes that have been EF3 or stronger have occurred in each decade. Notice the 1960s, we saw 5. In the 70s, 1. In the 80s, 2, but that occurred right in 1980. And in the 1990s, just barely, we saw an EF3 there. Since then, in the 200 or the 2000s through the 2010s and even up to now, we have not seen any strong to violent tornadoes. And this trend actually continues with the rest of the nation. But keep in mind that even since 1980, we've seen some EF5 tornadoes at a similar latitude to us. And this is one of the reasons why experts say that even though many spots in Michigan have not seen strong to violent tornadoes, they've been happening at similar latitudes, which means it's only a matter of time before it scoots across the lake and we eventually get one that occurs here in West Michigan. So right now, it's just been a luck of the draw.
All right. Ellen, thank you.